All right, I'm at the top of page 13 at the next letter. January 15th, 1919. Dear Violet, Happy New Year. I would have written sooner, but there have been some bad relapses and flu cases, as well as some other things that have been keeping me very busy. I hope you are thinking about what I said about college. I know it seems far away when you are only in 4th grade. College arms you to fight the great battles. I learned that from Miss Lillian Wald. She's the founder of the Henry Street Settlement House where I'm doing my nurse training. She invented public health nursing, you know. She says the influenza has been a baptism by fire for all of her training. See, I lost my place. She invented public health nursing, you know. She says the influenza has been a baptism by fire for all of her trainees. I hope I never see anything worse. Speaking of battles, it looks as though Congress is going to take up the Susan B. Anthony Amendment when it reconvenes. That's the amendment poor Miss Anthony wrote back in 1878. Congress voted it down back then. To think women could have gotten the vote 40 years ago. It needs a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress to pass, which means it's going to be a huge knockdown, drag-out fight. And Congress has defeated it before. If they do pass it, it will go to the states for ratification, and then it will be part of our U.S. Constitution. Part of me really wants to go to Washington to help Miss Alice Paul and the National Women's Party work for that amendment. But I also want to stay here and finish my nurse's training, especially now that my baptism by fire is over. Touch wood and cross fingers. There are other things that make me want to stay in New York too, but a woman shouldn't let herself be ruled by those sorts of things. Love, Chloe. Violet couldn't figure out what the last 2 sentences of that letter meant. Chloe's life in New York sounded thrilling. Violet imagined Chloe climbing up and down towering tenement buildings, risking death by influenza or falling off a roof to bring help and hope to hundreds of suffering people. It sounded a lot more exciting than marrying one of the Mr. R's. Violet eagerly opened the next letter. February 18th, 1919. Dear Violet, you still haven't written back to me. I hope you're not still angry with me for leaving. You know I really couldn't do anything else. I didn't want to marry Mr. Russell, or whoever else they found for me, and turn into a good little helpmeet, hosting dinner parties and having babies, and never again having a thought or idea or dream of my own. I wonder if Mother ever had a dream before she married Father. Well, it's too late for me to ask her now. Last week I drove the Hope Chest out to Long Island with some girls from one of the worst tenements on Hester Street. None of them had ever seen an open field before. They couldn't believe all the space. I wish you could have been with us. The Hope Chest got 2 flat tires, one on the way there and one on the way back, but fortunately a friend of mine showed me how to patch them myself. Everyone agrees that a lady motorist should know how to change a tire, but considering how often they burst, I'm glad I knew how to patch them now as well. Some people think that us suffragists, or is it we suffragists, hate men, but that's not at all true. Lots of men are really nice, like my friend who showed me how to patch tires. There's a difference between liking men and wanting to have them run your whole life. Well, that's neither here nor there. I hope you are getting along all right. I remember that when I was in 8th grade and my friend Dottie Armitage died of consumption, I didn't want to be friends with anyone else for a very long time. I thought that would be somehow disloyal to Dottie. It wasn't true, though, and I hope you know it isn't true about Flossie either. When a friend dies, some of her always stays inside of us. Write back if you can. Love, Chloe. Violet felt peculiar. It was as if Chloe had read her mind. Back then, that is. She had felt just that way when her grief started to ease enough that she could sometimes laugh and have fun and want to be with people again. She'd felt as if she'd been betraying Flossie if she made other friends. Violet threw the letter angrily down on the riverbank beside her. It would have been great to read this letter back then. The last letter was just a note. April 15th, 1919. Dear Violet, this clipping is a poem that was in the newspaper the other day. It's called Aftermath, and it's by a man named Siegfried Sassoon, who was in the British Army. I wish you'd read it to Stephen. You know there's going to be a League of Nations. Everyone says we will never have a war again. I hope that's true." Violet looked in the envelope, but there was no clipping. Either had fallen out or Mother had taken it when she'd read the letter. That was what made Violet snap. Mother had read all these letters. Maybe Father too, but it was Mother who she felt ought to have known better. Mother had kept Chloe's interesting news and comforting thoughts from Violet when Violet needed them most. And there were more letters, besides these few that Violet had managed to rescue. Violet knew they wouldn't be in the desk anymore. They'd be hidden somewhere she couldn't find them, or even burned. All her life, Violet had accepted that her parents made decisions, and whether Violet liked it or not, that was the way things were. But this was too much. The letters had been written for her by Chloe, the only person in the family who had ever told her anything except how to behave. And she hadn't stolen them. They'd been stolen from her. It was completely unfair, and Violet wasn't going to put up with it. I want you to stop and think a second about what you think Violet might do next. What would you do?